Hello and welcome to the Dead Air Dudes. I'm Izzy.
I'm Raka. Thank you, one and all, for again tuning in to the Dead Air Dudes as Dead Air Dudes Nation grows. And we are continuing our true crime series.
Yes, I do believe, what is this? Episode 18, I think.
In this series, yeah, boy, we've covered a good amount of crazies. And this one is of the more recent ilk, actually making news recently, too. And in many ways, part integral to today's serial killer quest, capture, and activities.
In comparison, it's not as, let me, I don't know how can I put this. It's not as crazy. It is, but not as sensational as your traditional, over the top cannibal or, murderous, these over the top guys, but still evil and fucked up and definitely worth, it definitely scared a lot of people. We're talking about Dale Hausner and Samuel Dieteman, the serial shooters. Okay, another duo for you guys.
Actually, a trio. You can actually throw in the brother of Samuel Dieteman into the mix. He was indicted. I think of a lesser but still heinous charge of attempted murder, 2 counts of which, and because he's the brother and he turned over his partnership to his brother Samuel, he's included into this. Crazy. I wouldn't even go as far as say cold and calculated, just very demented, um, very misguided. Before we go any further, 2 things. We want to just let everybody know that there's, of course, graphic nature involved in this. And secondly, thank you, everybody, especially our growing listeners around the world and around the country. Thank you for liking and subscribing and keeping us alive.
Like and subscribe to
And
keep us going.
keep us going. Okay, with that said, we're taking you down to 2005, 2006 in Arizona, near the Glendale area, in Phoenix area. I say that because it did encompass many different districts.
Right. Do you want to go into their background for this? Not much is really out there about their background, except for the fact that Dale Hausner, and in 1994 he lost his 2 sons following a car accident, which in turn, obviously no excuses, but it definitely shook him up. And Dieteman was also a father, and his rampant drug use, he ended up, losing his family basically. So
There's not much. I hear there's not much between the two. The only thing with Dale Hausner is that he had 2 failed marriages, and people who loosely know him or associate with him consider him pretty quick, witty, smart, good guy, and that's the front that he has. The intimate people, he mainly his 2 wives and very very close friends, say he is a scary, violent whack job.
well, and that
Of Samuel Dieteman,
the whole thing,
yeah, Samuel Dieteman's childhood is a little more fucked up. Um, uh, Broken home, moving in and out between Arizona and Iowa, I believe, or Midwest. Uh, Not much of a. I think the father was imprisoned. I think there was he harnessed a big resentment about that. His home was not a happy one. His home was fractured. Again, not saying that he that's an excuse, but it does tie in as a factor. He did have that child of his at a young age, talk about teenage age, and was unable to fulfill, you know, obligations as he sought to be the case, and inevitably suffered from what many people are conflicted on, either calling it mental illness or severe depression, or a mix of both.
Right.
But we get to the present day. Well, present day meaning how these crimes started to unfold.
Yeah.
I guess that takes us to
2005.
2005. Is David Estrada the first one?
Actually, the first one was David Estrada.
So David Estrada is a 20-year-old male, and the pattern that starts out is quite crazy.
But let me interject one thing. 8 people were killed. 19 were shot. So technically, I mean, it could have been so much worse. The first person that they shot was Tony Mendez on May 17th. The first person, unfortunately, who passed away was David Estrada on June 29th of the same year. Go on, Rocco.
And as you pointed to, I make no light here when I say that included, however, does not bear the same weight, of course, obviously, are numerous dogs and horses.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is just par for the course, man. When you start killing animals, that's
usually you start killing animals and then you graduate to killing people.
It's
so
messed up, but it's true.
And the odd thing here is there started to be an early pattern of threes where they did 3 in a night, sometimes within 3 city blocks, sometimes within an area.
Let's tell the audience that how did these guys go out and pick their victims?
Well, as it turns out, it's usually nighttime. These are loners who they spot. They're coming home from work or they're out and about, and it's late evening. Remember, there are only a few gas stations and maybe banks, and this is Arizona, not to disparage Arizona, but it's not a big metropolis like New York, Washington, D.C., L.A., whatever, where there's cameras everywhere. And again, 2005 cameras are not like today. They're present, but they're not everywhere like today.
They knew what they were doing because between 10 and 4 a.m., the majority, if not all, the shootings occurred.
And when the shootings did occur, they occurred within minutes or within the same hour, which one of the things that led detectives to suspect this is not a one-man job.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, the car rolls up to a stranger, maybe catches their attention, maybe says something, where's the directions or what time is it or something like that. Very, very nondescript.
Like your typical drive-by, not even
roll down the window,
watching the bodies drop and just, I mean, they've been linked to as many, say, as 38 incidents of shootings.
Well, the unfortunate thing is, which hampered the police force at the time, is there's other serial killers in the state of Arizona at the same time. And so even though there's overlap, there's not a distinction that this is them, this is them.
Of course not, because they didn't know. That's what they call them, the serial shooter, not knowing shooters.
Right. And the first few cases were with a 22.
Yep.
So as police started to deduce, it's very hard for a single person to roll up on somebody, get someone's attention late at night, then pull out the gun, aim perfectly, fire, and execute. So they decided, at the very least, this is most likely a 2-man job. Somebody's a driver, somebody's a shooter. They still did not have a description of the
No.
cars. None of the survivors who did survive even can recall a description. This is pretty much creep up on you and blast away. But they do know it's a 22. Unfortunately, they went out in public to try to get some information. And this is not out of the textbook of trying to catch a serial killer, but they kept a lot of information close to the vest because they don't want to expose everything and give a lead to the. But unfortunately, in one of the footages that they showed in a police conference, they showed a 22. So I said, "Oh, now the guy's gonna freaking change," and he did. He then
graduated to what?
To a shotgun. So that's detective work 101. Do not do. Do not show your cards. Now, they admitted that they screwed up there and they did not have any leads. Because you're talking about late at night, no cameras, no witnesses, no tire marks. They didn't speed off. They calmly rolled up, shot the victim, and rolled away.
Yeah.
I mean, very calculated, very clean.
You're walking home from work, from school, from a drink, from your girlfriend's house, boyfriend's house, whatever. And then just all of a sudden, you're shot. That's it. Done.
Some of these victims died on the spot.
Yeah.
Very few of them even crawled a few feet away. Pretty much dead as is, unfortunately. And again, dogs were heard being shot, and dogs were heard, and the crime scene where they found dogs and horses dead, very in proximity with each other, very close. So you're talking about somebody who's calm enough, calculated enough to execute this plan, know their victims, know exactly what they're looking for their victims, zero remorse whatsoever, and go. But as it turns out later,
they caught a break.
They caught a break. But before the break, there was one victim that survived, and these two mofos were actually very brazen to assist the victim. And when cops arrived, they actually spoke to the police and gave their real names.
That is insane.
They tried to help this victim. They saw him they tried to help him, whatever. And give your real name. So if you ever were caught, and they must have been so brazen thinking they're never going to get caught, you are now placing yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's the
scene of the crime.
They did not, especially Hauser, who's the mastermind of this all, did not think they were going to get caught. As you find out later on, when they actually did get caught, and you go to the house, the man had like an armory in his house.
They had an armory. They had newspaper clippings.
Yeah,
they had clippings of
everything. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Now, the break. Well, I mean, no, they shot one of the victims who survived, Ashley Armenta, and she was shot in the head. She thought it was a BB gun or whatever, but she actually got a look at the car, make and model, and a partial plate. And that was the small break that they needed.
Yes. Prior to this, the only clue they had was a partial, grainy, black and white footage from a surveillance camera that showed placing within the area, within the time that the murders occurred, was a either Nissan or Toyota sedan.
And again, 0506, you might not think it's a long time ago, but it really wasn't. And technology has jumped leaps and bounds, especially camera-wise. So some back then looked pretty crappy as opposed to now, where you can have a camera this big and it can, whatever. But
then the biggest break that turns out that leads to incriminating evidence was this snitch.
yes, well, yeah. Once they got the part, they knew what the car looked like, and from then they knew that Dieteman had a tattoo on his arm. And from there they knew. Well, you know what? Forget it. You go on. I'll get better. We'll go back to that.
All right. So they end up getting a tip from a friend of Dieteman, Ron Horton.
Yes.
Now, Ron Horton is also a petty theft guy. He's in and out of the prison system.
Ex-biker, a drinking buddy of Dieteman,
So you're always weary when your source is a criminal himself. But in talking with these guys when they're drinking, take it for what it's worth. We don't know what kind of favors were paid out left and right to get information, maybe ease up on his criminal record or whatever. But apparently it disturbed Ron Horton a lot that you can be into crime and stuff, but oh my God, you're a serial killer. You're the serial killer in these Arizona parts. There's a difference. Again, I'm leaving that up to people's discretion whether they buy that or not. And so he cooperated with the police to drink with Dieteman inside bars where they planted cops. So they didn't plant actually on him, but they had cops inside the bar with listening surveillance devices to try to get him to confess. One of the things that he did say, which was very incriminating, was they had leaked out the 22 information inadvertently, but they did not tell anybody what kind of shotgun or what kind of gun was used next. And he intimated to Ron Horton during drinking that, he's using that kind of gun. They can't pin this one on me. They can't pin this one on me. And the cops immediately, the red lights went on. Like, we didn't tell anybody what kind of gun is being used now that he switched over from the 22. And so then, if there was any scattering of a doubt, whether you were doubting Horton's eyewitness testimony or you're doubting whether this is the right guy or not, this is the guy. He knew intimate knowledge of what the cops were doing and what kind of gun was used, only because he did it. So as they continue to do this stuff,
not have
right. But now that they had an edge on where he's going, the real damning evidence came in the garbage.
Yep.
So
they're
staking out Dieteman's place. They got verbal, innuendos and hints of knowing how the killings were done. But once he threw out the garbage, coast was clear. They went in, they retrieved the garbage. Because as you criminals should know by now, once you throw garbage out, it's free reign. And you don't need a warrant.
What did they throw away? A huge freaking...
And inside the garbage were that
had points of where they were, where some of the shootings were and everything. As a matter of fact, when the cops when they found out what the car was, they followed them, that Hauser came to pick up Dieteman. They got in the car, and they actually went out to kill people. And the cops followed them. They had several cop cars undercover following them and praying and hoping that nothing would happen. But in a way, if it did, they can catch them in the act, hopefully stop them before it started raining. Nobody was outside, and nothing happened. they went home. And then that's
the cops would be as careful as they could while trailing them.
Yep.
That when they see anybody on the street, they will come up to them as soon as the car passed. They will come up to them and scream, "Go home! Run away from here! Get out of here!" Almost willing to blow the cover than to have another victim fall to these guys. These guys circled around for almost 3 hours.
Yeah, I mean.
So whether they were loaded, they just didn't feel right, didn't the right time, whatever you want to call it, man, you're stalking people for more than 3 hours to get the right ones. Ah, man, that takes a little different kind of nerve and makeup there. The other thing, which was incriminating, as they started to get very sloppy and brazen, were on June 8th, 2 Walmarts were set on fire. 45 minutes apart, these locations, causing approximately $7 to $10 million worth of damages. Luckily, thank goodness, nobody was seriously hurt and injured. Surveillance cameras inside the Walgreens placed both men in there, and both near the flower area where the fire was started. So, not so smart, are we, idiots?
No.
You know, so these guys, and in retrospect, Dieteman more than the so-called follower, which, Hauser more than Dieteman.
Hauser was the mastermind. Dieteman was just a follower. As you can tell,
Dieteman was troubled. Dieteman had severe issues.
You see how it ended up that Hauser went down for everything, while Dieteman.
Well, what's interesting is I saw footage of the interrogations of both.
Oh, I saw. I mean, he was a cocky sumbitch.
He was putting it off. Oh, I'm not sure this is me, and of course, making these suggestions that
citizen. It was and then when
Dieteman
tried to flip them on each other, and Dieteman was already kind of saying, "Well, I only killed this person and this person. The rest were me."
Right.
As that happened, Hauser knew and tried to flip it with you know what? I did nothing. It was all a little Sammy boy.
I'm telling you, and well, as is played out once they caught them, because they had the rights, they had them dead to rights with videotape, placing them in the right place, placing them in the right time. Witness the only people who were there with one of the murderers, and now with the ballistics casings and the maps found in the garbage.
Yeah, exactly. You know where they found freaking a shotgun shell? Morons. Inside a soda can. An empty shotgun shell inside a soda can in the garbage. Okay? Now, with all the evidence that they got a emergency wiretap, which albeit is rare, for that to actually happen. And when that happened, that was it. Sing like canaries, and they got everything.
In addition,
everything
during the trial, I would say noteworthy law work, or whatever you want to call it, defense work. The murders, the dog and horse murders, the human murders, the arson, everything corresponded to bad days in Dale Hausner's life. So days where the death of his children, the anniversary of which that day, people died. The anniversary date of his divorces, people died. Bad day at work, people died. Anything documented that was tragic and painful for Hausner, he took out his violence and bloodlust, and somebody died. Again, Samuel Dieteman's brother was first friends with Hausner. Then he got a job or something. Apparently, he was accused and convicted of 2 attempted murders, where predating all the shootings, the brother went out and stabbed victims. So once he got a real job, he no longer could be the ride-along partner, and he subbed in his troubled brother.
Yep.
Who, after the killings, I forgot, it was one of the ladies. Unfortunately, I can't remember. But after one of the murders, Samuel Dieteman was so troubled, so overwrought with regret and what are we doing? But he didn't have the freaking balls to stop it or pull himself out. He would say that he needed to be 24 hours drunk and high
Now,
to
look,
go along.
we're not defending the son of a bitch who actually did this shit, because regardless whether he's troubled or not, he actually committed these acts in association with Hausner. So he deserves everything he got.
Yeah, you're guilty too, but all 3 of you, you're all guilty. You're part of this ring of hunting people, cold blood. They did nothing to you. They're completely random people. Their crime was being out at night alone with you.
So, bottom line, once everything is all settled and done after trial, Hausner was charged with 87 crimes. Okay? 8 murders, 19 attempted murders, numerous aggravated assaults, drive-by shootings, of course, firearm charges, cruelty to animals, and, of course, arson. We didn't forget that one. All right? He was convicted of 6 of the 8 murders and 80 out of 87 charges overall. Okay? Now, Dieteman, he pleaded guilty to 2 murders, like I mentioned before, and conspiracy to commit some of the other related murders. So he received a sentence of life without parole. Now, Hausner, on March 27th of 2009, was sentenced to 6 death sentences. Okay? And so he goes, Hauser had instructed his attorneys not to oppose a death sentence, saying his execution would help the victims' families heal. After a mandatory appeal, Hausner waived further appeal and requested to be put to death as soon as possible. Okay? Then he had a half-hour statement to the jury before sentencing. He apologized to several people, including his family, and compared himself to none other than Charles Manson. Okay? So, now.
So we cannot put into light how, for the summer and the whole year's worth from 2005 to 2006, the activities of Hausner, Dieteman have crippled the Arizona and greater area.
Now, I'm gonna
Think about it, people. Put yourselves in this situation. You talk about a night stalker, random killer, and also arson starter. You don't know what level this person is capable of. You don't know if you're the victim because you don't fit a profile. The only profile is you're alone at night. So not only did this individual just randomly kill and with the help of someone or someone's get away with it with very little leads, he held a whole state and neighboring states in terror.
Yeah, I mean, we're from the East Coast, like we have mentioned before, so I wasn't too aware of what's going on. But
this is huge.
This is probably, I mean,
as son of Samish as you can get, as Green River killer as you can get, as much of a Manson thing as you can get, where killer this is what movie stuff is made of. Killer at large, no clues. We don't know how he looks like.
just in
Or
case
she.
you guys were feeling bad for Dieteman, I have a quote for you from from good old Sammy himself. All right, quote: "My favorite thing is, when somebody is walking away, it gives me, a couple extra seconds to aim. I don't have to worry about them looking. I get too paranoid if somebody walking towards me, and while I'm trying to aim, they're freaking gonna see me or not. Not so much see me, but see the gun sticking out wrong or something, and be able to give a description." Okay, so
So now that you've mentioned him with Dieteman, what happened to Dieteman?
Dieteman went to jail.
Dieteman's in jail. The brother's in jail, and I guess
Now, what happened to Hauser?
from the Hauser.
A lot more interesting, and of course, as you always say, and this is our personal opinion. Motherfucker took the easy way out. Okay, and he was found unresponsive in his cell on June 19th, 2013, and his autopsy received no physical trauma, and they later confirmed that he committed suicide, overdose of an antidepressant, which I'm gonna try to, mangle this name. He overdosed on amitriptyline or amitriptyline. Okay, so yeah,
Did you just say I'm a Tripton?
no, I'm a Klingon, but
So now we're not we're not living under a rock. We know you could get anything you really want in prison. I'm amazed that somebody on death row is not on 24-hour surveillance suicide watch, and unless
then again, I mean, a piece of shit like that.
oh yeah, why would I care? Why would I care? Why would I give two fucks? Why?
Yes, I mean,
How safe you are? You know what?
unfortunately, you took the, I'm gonna say pleasure, but you took the satisfaction or the
You took the right away for victims to watch you die by doing it on your own terms at your own time. Again, like you said, cowardly, you know, not facing the music to the very end. And end, I mean the courtroom. He didn't come out and say, "I'm sorry I killed him," because I'm sorry to the families that were hurt, and he's sorry to his own family for tarnishing their names. But he was a stubborn, proud son of a bitch.
yeah, no, he went until the moment where they freaking got him. I mean, if you guys
Didn't admit.
if you guys can watch the interrogation, this motherfucker he tried his best to, he did not.
Blamed everybody else, the solar eclipse, aliens landing. I mean, anything and anyone other than him, his buddy, his other buddy's brother, everyone you could possibly think of. He was some piece of work. He was one deranged fuck who, again, his two wives had mentioned how violent he got with them, and that's why those marriages ended. Maybe he would have killed anybody regardless, but the deaths of his kids, I guess, made him snap. And he went to a point where he cannot go back. And then everything gets muddled in between moral code, conduct, future, safety, whatever. But like I always say, there is a fine line between calling somebody um, insane and crazy
No,
versus calling them depraved and misguided.
they when they found the armory, they found books on how to commit crimes and get away with it. He was a fan of serial killers, and um, he was let me see,
Well, he boasted. He boasted on tape
was
to his buddy.
Charles Starkweather and Jeffrey Dahmer. He mentioned how Dahmer could eat the remains of some of his victims and then go to work the next day.
But he was recorded in dealings with his buddy there saying, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, that he's taking pride in these murders that he has pioneered and revolutionized.
Yeah.
Serial killing.
And how stupid the cops are that they couldn't figure it out. And, you know.
Yeah, he honestly thought that they're free and clear and they could do this forever.
And of course, he's also a poet. Now, I'm not trying to, you know, give him credit for this, but he actually, you know, wrote a poem. Death is only the beginning. In death, I find hope, the hope of better times, of no memories, of forgiveness, gotten and given. In death, I can see my kids, I can tell them that I'm sorry and that I love them. No more pain, guilt, or shame. In death, I will be able to breathe again. Death is welcomed, is needed, is longed for. Death is only the beginning. And he signed it, an original poem by Dale S. Hausner.
Yes. Bravo, poet laureate on death row, taking the easy way out. That poem applies strictly and only to you, because the death of your victims does none of the above.
Real POS.
Well, it was a little chilling and frightening to have reviewed this particular serial killer, me being that he is of recent times.
Yeah.
And you know, today everybody feels a little pseudo safe. I say pseudo safe because, you know, there's cameras everywhere. Granted, I give you that. It's a little more comforting to know you can place certain things at certain times and somebody's going to catch you, whether a traffic camera or a bank or something. But at the same time, especially now, these are the days of COVID where you have a mask and there could be a lot of savvy digital people out there who can manipulate images. You didn't exist at that time, although 5 cameras clearly saw you there.
Right.
But I guess it's timeless. A killer is a killer is a killer is a killer is a killer. Regardless of the consequence, remorse, prison time, or what have you. There's a sick puppy out there. They're going to find a way, figure out a way to do it. Which is why we always tell you from Deader Dudes as a public service announcement, stay vigilant, be smart. Does not mean you're never going to be fallen as a victim. But, you know, use some common sense, go in groups, keep your phone on, whatever precautions you can possibly take. Because there are sick fucks aplenty, no shortage of that.
No, I mean, hey, and I think that all this social media and it just breeds another, well, that's a whole different story, but it suffice to say, the times nowadays, the breeding ground for, you know, sick puppies. And I, you know, hope that we never get any more of these guys, but that's pretty much it.
See something, say something. People, thank you again for joining us for another segment of our true crime investigations, especially those of the serial killer ilk. Join us soon as we delve into some of the bigger hitters that have made really their name and the name of serial killers popular, and we will eventually trend in that way. Drop us a line, leave us a comment, let us know how we're doing. Let us know if there's a topic or a person, individuals, groups, a cult, whatever that you would like to be interested in that we can investigate for you, present. Hell, be on a show with us. Give us a call.
Definitely. And be on the lookout for our upcoming episode that when we delve into the Sons of Sam show as well as the Sons of Sam himself. That's going to be a doozy, maybe even a 2-parter.
Especially we're from New York. We got a lot to talk about there.
With that being said, I'm Izzy.
I'm Raka. Peace out. Save the whales. Thanks again.
Take care, everybody.